Interesting. Interesting. I've been having audio issues lately. I don't know why. Sucks to suck, I guess. Let's see. Is my I was gonna check my audio beforehand, but for some reason I went live. I accidentally clicked go live instead of select stream. So sheesh. Let's see. Okay. Seems alrighty. Get the fuck out of here, Discord. I know your purpose is to lag my stream. Oh shit, I wanted this to be smaller. Oh well. It'll be more immersive that way. For me? No one else. Just for me. Waha. Okay, there we go. Who the fuck was that? I saw someone. Huh? Oh, it's just TOWA. So where it ended, it was just it ended on a sussy note. I was like, does something happen after this? Yeah, something happened. So I know where to stop. And be like, got a censor, tee. Yeah. Oh my god, I'm so tired. I don't know if I can do a voice for him. I was trying to sound evil and sinister when I voiced him before, but I don't know if he'll come across.
汚れたら洗う。汚れる前に洗う。そういうものだろ。
Is this? Apparently, he wanted to give me a bath, as if I really was his pet dog or something. What a joke. I suppressed a laugh. It was just so absurd. For both of us. The anger rose up with the laughter, and I glared at him beneath my soaking wet bangs. I did not feel like playing his little game. I balled my hand into a fist and lunged at him. But my swing was too weak to connect, and Madarame dodged easily before swiftly countering. His fist shot like a bullet into my face, and I hit the wall behind me.
悪い。つい反射で手が出た。
Oh, sorry. Just a reflex. His tone was casual, and I could tell he wasn't sorry at all.
お前本当に力が入らないんだな。ふざけてるわけじゃないんだよな。
You've really gotten this weak, huh? You're not just fucking with me. As he spoke, he reached out and grabbed me by the neck. As I sat slumped against the wall with my knees bent, he tilted my head upwards. Then he removed my eye patch. There was a dark red stain on the underside. I must have started bleeding when he punched me.
右目はあの時か。
Did you lose it that night? He reached out and pried my empty eyelid open without hesitation.
眼球はないのか。
No eyeball at all, huh? He examined the socket thoroughly, then let go.
なぜ隠す？
Why do you hide it?
隠す必要はないだろう。
You know you don't gotta hide it, right? When I didn't answer, he chuckled.
まあいい。洗ってやる。
Fine then. I'll wash you myself. Next thing I knew, he was holding a bar of soap. He rubbed it directly against my head to create a lather.
やめろ。
Stop it.
うるさい。
Shut the fuck up. I struggled to escape, but he grabbed my head with both hands and started washing my hair. As the drone of the water and lathering sounds echoed in the stall, I determined that my resistance was futile and fell still. Madarame lathered my hair until he was satisfied, then moved my head under the stream of water. The sudsy water streamed into my face and I squeezed my eyes shut. After he rinsed my hair, he moved me out of the water stream. When he pressed the bar of soap against my bare chest, I squirmed as to brush my scars. But evidently he wasn't doing this to tiltate me. He moved from my chest to my stomach, then down to my groin. After he washed my legs, he grabbed my shoulder and turned me around, and started on my back. It felt so deeply bizarre to have Madarame wash my body. I couldn't decipher what he was thinking, and his behavior made no sense. I knew this was just who he was, but it still left me flummoxed.
よし。
There. He moved me under the water to rinse me off, then stopped the stream. Next, he grabbed the towel sitting folded on the counter and handed it to me.
着替えはそこだ。
Your change of clothes is over there. He jerked his chin to indicate the white shirt that was beneath the towel, then left the bathroom. Holding the towel, I stood blankly in the shower stall for a few moments. I still couldn't quite process it. Madarame was a man who played by his own rules. And in the time since I'd last seen him, he sincerely hadn't changed a bit. While I roughly dried myself off, Madarame headed out somewhere. Then, a few hours later... As the sky beyond the window began to turn dark, I sat against the wall, drifting in and out of consciousness. I hadn't touched Madarame's offerings, and I was usually sleepy, possibly my body trying to conserve its energy. There was a loud noise. I opened my eye. The door opened and footsteps approached. I caught a whiff of blood. Madarame walked up to me, grabbed my arm and hauled me up. As I rose to my feet, I glared at him. But then I sensed something alarming in his demeanor and frowned slightly. His usual self-assured attitude was nowhere to be seen. And why did he smell like blood? Upon closer inspection, I could see red stains splattered on his shirt.
怪我したのか?
Are you hurt? Without answering, he reached straight for my collar. Then I heard a click and the perpetual chokehold finally vanished. He had removed my collar. I considered making a run for it, but his tight grip on my arm suggested it wouldn't go well. Even in the darkness, I could see a feral glint in his eyes. He tossed the collar to the ground, then started dragging me in the direction of the bedroom. When we got there, he threw me down face first onto the bed. The thin mattress let out a small creak. There was a click and a dim orange light illuminated the room. Madarame pulled his coat off and wordlessly crawled on top of me. I looked over my shoulder and caught sight of a scarlet stain stretching from his sleeve to his chest. There were other red smears here and there, but those were probably from someone else's blood. The big stain, however, was bright and pungent. Is your arm? Before I could finish my question, he pushed my face down into the pillow. Stick your ass up. He commanded me robotically with no trace of emotion. And then boom, he sticks his ass out. Wait, let's see, is it censored fully? Ah, shit, you can see a little. Yeah, there we go. Could see a little wiener action. Oops. Oopsies. Don't tell YouTube that. That wasn't a wiener, that was a pinky, yeah. Yeah. I did as instructed, then I heard the click of a belt buckle and felt him spread my cheeks. On the face, of course. Okay, they're having the sex. Okay, I'm just gonna... Yeah, he fell down, that's why he made that sound. Of course. Yeah, they, So basically, he just put it in with no stretching, no lubricant. And then TOWA was just like, you know what? I'm pretty into it. It was rough, painful, blank, and yet it gave me intense spine-tingling pleasure. I got off on being overpowered in bed. The worse I was treated, the more it turned me on. But because I was near starvation, the blank was making me dizzy. My body seemed to sink into the mattress. The room was awash with the creak of the bed springs and the thick smell of blood. And then TOWA calls himself a butt slut. I was just a walking cum dumpster. The mere thought made me shiver. I wasn't human, just a fuck toy to be used and discarded. It was a reassuring thought, actually. After all, if I wasn't human, then there was no shame in living in the gutter. No one would even care. I was no different from trash. And this thought offered a dark, nihilistic sense of relief. I thought it was interesting character development, that's why I mentioned it. Evidently, he had finished his business. Overcome with intense fatigue, I buried my face in the wrinkled sheets and closed my eye. I didn't come so my wiener was still rock hard, but I didn't care. I could just ignore it and it would go soft eventually. Wordlessly, Madarame rose from the bed. I could sense him looking down on me. Then his footsteps headed into the distance and I heard the chair creak in the other room. It's over. Ooh, no more, funny business. I opened my eye a crack and gazed around. Beyond the glassless windows, I could see a crescent moon in the night sky. And that was the last thing I saw. Before I passed out. So Madarame is being associated with the moon in this route. That's interesting. The moon was huge that night. Or maybe the trauma. Or a mixture of all of it, who knows. There were no clouds, just a tranquil yellow moon, shining quietly. And what lay beneath that tranquility was pure carnage. As if disconnected from the sky altogether, the ground below was dusty, hazy, filled with shouts and gunshots. People were running around, fighting, punching. Meanwhile, I stood there, staring blankly. Why was I here? This was the past. A nightmare I didn't want to remember. Nightmare. Dream. Then I realized I was dreaming. Now that I thought about it, none of these people seemed to notice me standing here. This was a memory from when the Taksatogumi turned on each other. Just then, a piercing hot impact struck my right eye. My vision went white, and the next thing I knew, I was lying on the ground. My whole head throbbed hard, and the right half of my vision was muddy crimson. I could smell something burning. And the sounds of scuffle came back into focus, engulfing me in an instant. But the whole time, I just lay there. Damn. Just then, my eye flew open. Apparently, I'd fallen asleep. The small, crappy floor lamp was still on, glowing dimly orange. I felt like I had dreamed about something. Something I didn't want to remember about my past. A stab of pain shot through my right eye, and I inhaled sharply. Lightly rubbing my empty eyelid with one hand, I slowly exhaled once more. The pain wasn't real. It was just residual phantom pain from the nightmare. Digging my nails into my eyelid, I slowly pushed myself up into a sitting position on the edge of the bed. Then I looked for Madarame and found him sitting in the chair in the other room. His head was tilted downwards, his posture relaxed. Was he asleep? The light from the floor lamp didn't reach him, so I couldn't tell. But I could see his coat draped lazily over the table. This was the first time I'd ever seen him asleep since I got here. And if he was sleeping, was he getting sloppy now that a few days had passed? Suddenly, I was very awake, like someone had dumped a bucket of cold water over my head. I observed him carefully, then rose to my feet. I wasn't wearing the collar, so I was free to walk around as I pleased. Slowly, I pressed my bare feet to the cold floor. I quietly crept forward. As I approached the table near Madarame, I paused to gauge his reaction. Still no signs of him stirring, so I continued to the table. I was hoping I'd find something useful in his coat pockets, like a weapon or something. Funny how quickly I changed my tune about escaping as soon as the opportunity presented itself. Nevertheless, I reached out to the coat. Careful not to make a sound, I slipped my fingers into each pocket. I focused my attention on my fingertips, trying to gauge what was in there. I kept glancing at Madarame out of the corner of my eye. I was so nervous, my palms started to sweat. Then, right as I was about to give up, my fingers brushed something hard and cold. I grabbed it and pulled it out. A switchblade. I didn't even have time to feel relieved. Eager to escape, I glanced over at Madarame. Oh. Instantly, I froze. His emotionless eyes were staring back at me. Wasn't he fast asleep just seconds ago? His eyes glinted coldly in the darkness. Then his smoke twitched. Reflectively, I turned to bolt. But he was faster and he grabbed my arm. My body staggered backwards and I hit the ground flat on my back, knocking the wind out of me. As I grimaced and coughed, a shadow fell over me, even darker than the rest of the room. Simultaneously, a gust of wind brushed past my ear. Is this what you wanted? He fell onto me, stabbing the knife into the floor. His expression and tone were both perfectly rational, which made him all the more creepy. He pulled the knife out of the floor and pressed it against my cheek. The icy blade sent goosebumps prickling up my arms. You think you can just kill me to get free? I could always sever all the tendons in your feet, but rendering you immobile will only complicate things for me later. He pressed his lips to my ear and spoke in a breathy whisper. Every time he breathed into my eardrum, it sent a shudder down my spine. I turned my face away. He lifted his head, then grabbed my shirt with both hands and forcibly ripped it open. Again? Bro, you just had sex. The moonlight streamed in through the windows, illuminating my sickly pale chest and innumerable scars. He examined my body silently, then narrowed his eyes. You've added a lot more scars since I last saw you. Still a cum dump, I see. So what if I am? I glared back at him, refusing to be intimidated. Then a prick of pain shot through the left side of my chest. I looked down to see the tip of the knife pressed against it. Madarame smiled and slid the knife toward my nipple. The very tip of the blade nicked the skin, and a tiny bead of blood formed on my nipple. With his eyes locked on mine, Madarame lowered his head and ran his tongue to my bleeding nip. What the? This is oddly bizarre but very funny at the same time. I don't know how to describe it. Oh shit. What? What happened? I just noticed my slow damage thing changed. Ooh. I had the wrong source. Oops. So I fixed it to fix the text. I just noticed it was like cut off. Oopsies. Mamma mia. The tingling pain and wet warmth made me exhale. He looked up at me and licked his lips sensually. And I see you still get off to pain. For some reason, I hated the fact that he was the one commenting on it. And I hated myself for letting it turn me on. But I bet you really want the knife right here, don't you? He pointed the tip of the knife at the scar that bisected my chest. That was all it took to make me shiver in anticipation. I wanted him to stab the knife into me and rip me open. I nearly lost myself in fantasy, picturing blood pouring from the raised flesh. Madarame must have sensed this because he pressed the knife hard against my scar. Reflectively, I let out a little breath. TOWA! Come on, TOWA! Naughty. But then he pulled the knife away and got off me.
少し首輪を外しただけでこれだからな。
The one time I take your collar off, and this is the thanks I get. I looked up at him as he complained. Then I realized he had changed his shirt. Oh, did he? There were no scarlet stain on this one. Instead, I could see a bandage peeking out from his lazily rolled up sleeve. Sure enough, he was injured. This wasn't common for Madarame. Back when we were in the Takasato Gumi, I hardly ever saw him get hurt. Did he go head-to-head against a skilled fighter? Or did he get sloppy? Madarame rose to his feet and grabbed the collar off the floor. The chain rattled as he walked back over. Ultimately, I ended up wearing the collar again.
バカな気を起こすからだ。
That's what you get for getting stupid ideas in your head. He scoffed at me, then he grabbed the coat off the table and pulled it on. He dropped the switchblade back into his pocket, headed for the door, and walked out into the dark night. I lay there in the darkness until silence fell, at which point I slowly pushed myself up. I knew full well this would happen. I was stupid to try to fight him. But I was baited into it by the sight of him sleeping. I was the one who got sloppy. I no longer had the energy to curse my idiocy. However, my cold, numb fingers brushed against my collar. Instantly, my fatigue and lethargy overwhelmed me at once, and I slumped against the floor. Good night. That'll be me in like half an hour. Ha. I just want to play a little bit of slow damage as a tree. And I won't be able to play for like a week, which makes me sad. What time was it? How many days had passed since I first got here? I was now in a severely debilitated state. I lay on the floor in a perpetual daze, like I was always on the cusp of falling asleep. My limbs were too weak to move, but I wasn't trying to go anywhere, so I didn't mind. This was the natural outcome of refusing food and drink. By this point, I didn't even feel the hunger. My vision was hazy, and it was hard to tell whether I was awake or dreaming. So I lay there, zoning out, hallucinating. I would always lay around during those days too. On cold concrete, but on a bed. During those days, when I was part of the Takasato Gumi, I was always with Madarame. He would sit on the sofa and read books or watch TV while I laid on the bed nearby. I never did much except stare up at the ceiling and idle the time away. Even if we didn't talk, there was always some kind of background noise to keep me occupied, like the drones of the TV or Madarame's slightest movements. More than anything, I was at peace. I didn't particularly wish I could go back to those times, but I could picture it vividly. Few words could aptly describe my life with Madarame. How did Madarame feel about it, looking back? Did he think of it the same way I did? Madarame. Just then I heard a commotion from outside the window. I raised my head and looked outside. My body felt like lead, so I couldn't move swiftly. Supported by the wall, I used both hands to rise to my feet. After that, I needed a minute to recover my energy. Once I caught my breath, I staggered to the window. I could see a few people standing outside the building. At first, I thought they were deathmatch fighters, but I could see something glinting in their hands. Guns, maybe. I crouched down beneath the window. These guys couldn't be deathmatch fighters since firearms were tactically prohibited. So who were they? Tono's goons? Maybe they finally tracked down Madarame's hideout. My first instinct was to get out of here before they found me. Then I scoffed at myself. Why did I need to run? What did I care if they killed me? Not like my body was willing to cooperate anyway. But right before I gave into despair, something flashed through my mind. Eyes. Madarame's eyes. Staring at me in cold contempt. Instantly, long-forgotten rage welled up in my chest and I gritted my teeth. Impulsively, I reached for my collar. The thick leather held fast, and my fingers easily slipped from its surface. The more I struggled, the louder the chain rattled. However, I must have tugged it in the right spot because it popped off with a click. What the? It wasn't locked? It wasn't locked? Wow. Could Madarame have forgotten to lock it? No way. That could only mean one thing. I tossed the collar to the floor, provoking a metallic clatter from the chain. Then I staggered away from the window to the door. Out in the hallway, I could hear footsteps and sense people approaching. They were already in the building. I hear something. Oh, this way. At this, I clucked my tongue in frustration. They must have heard me struggling with the collar. I pressed a hand to the wall, held my breath, and crept down the hall in my bare feet. As I moved, I dodged around the debris and destroyed walls. But my body was sluggish, and I accidentally tripped over a brick. In my hurry to regain my balance, I accidentally kicked it and sent it clattering across the floor. Hey, someone's up there. I could hear voices coming down the hall, so I changed directions and went up the stairs instead. With my hand on the wall, I slowly heaved my feet up step by step. The slightest motion was enough to sap my energy. I was so weak, I was already gasping for breath. Meanwhile, a crowd of footsteps raced up the stairs after me. Stop! I fell still. Then one of them grabbed me by the hair. Where's Madarame? Fuck off. At this, they yanked me backwards. I fell, slapping my back against the stairs. Reflectively, I squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened it again, someone wearing a ski mask was staring back at me. Yeah. Answer. When I didn't comply, the man struck the butt of his gun against my face. Stars flew behind my eyelids as the impact rattled my skull. If you don't start talking... Suddenly, the man disappeared from view. When I looked up, Madarame was standing there. Whoa! Meanwhile, the other man was curled into a ball on the floor, groaning. All at once, the rest of them pointed their guns at Madarame. Somehow, I found the energy to push myself up and shove Madarame out of the way. Suddenly, everything started to happen in slow motion. Well, a different memory was playing in sync. This wasn't the first time I had tried to take a bullet for Madarame. The last time it happened, the person who pulled the trigger. Whoa. Was Tono. Aw, he's the dick that got rid of Towa's eye. At last, I finally remembered. When I returned to reality, I realized Madarame and I had fallen into the narrow staircase.
どうしようもないな。
You're so helpless. Madarame muttered quietly, then got up and headed over to the man who fired. I lay on my stomach on the stairs and watched it unfold from the corner of my eye. The way he took down opponent after opponent, he sure didn't look injured. The bullet must have missed. I exhaled and closed my eye. I had used up the last dredge of my energy, and now I was drowsy to the point of nausea. Yeah, that happens to me. The gunshots and shouting faded and silence fell. Then I felt someone pick me up. As I faded in and out of consciousness, I thought over the flashback I had just had. It was Tono.
わかってる。遠野の差し金だろ。
I know. I figured he sent them.
違う。
Not that.
加賀とあんたを撃ったのは遠野だ。
The guy who shot you and Kaga was Tono. I thought I heard Madarame swallow ever so slightly, but that was the moment sleep possessed me at last. I could remember it all. The memories flowed like a twisted kaleidoscope. Tono shot Kaga. Then Tono faced off against Madarame. I was with him at the start, but at one point Madarame told me to hide behind a building and watch from a distance.
あの女がいなくなってから組は2つに分かれちまった。
Ever since she died, the organization's been divided.
端的に言う。俺は榊についた。お前もこっちへ来い。
I'll be blunt. I've chosen Sakaki, and you should too.
加賀を裏切ったってことか。
So you're throwing Kaga under the bus?
組の将来を見据えての判断だ。従来の古臭いやり方じゃ組は落ちぶれる一方だ。
I've decided it's what's best for the organization. If we stick to the old ways, we'll only bring about our own ruin.
誰かが新しい方向へ舵を切らなきゃならない。親父も榊を支持することを決めた。
The change has gotta start somewhere. Even the boss supports Sakaki.
お前はバカじゃない。俺が言ってることの意味は分かってるはずだ。自分にとって何が得かを考えてみろ。
You're not a stupid man. You know what I'm getting at here. Think about your best interests.
断る。
I refuse.
本気か？
Are you serious?
ああ。
Yeah.
理由は？
Why?
嫌だからだよ。他に何がある？
Because I don't want to. End of story.
そうか。残念だな。
I see. That's a real shame. Ah! Tono drew a gun from his breast pocket. Then he pointed it at Madarame and pulled the trigger. Whoa, that's how Toa looked like. He has a cool fit too. Still has that pants. Wow. Wow. his like a expression, he just looks like a normal person, but like Towa currently, he just looks like so jaded. Like this face definitely has more emotion to it. It's so different. At the time, I ran out on impulse, and right as I shoved him, I felt something hot pierce my right eye. The right half of my vision was pure red, so I looked at him with the left half. His jacket was wet with blood. Had he been hit?
お前もいたのか。
Didn't realize you were here. Tono looked at me coldly, then turned the gun on me. Instantly, Madarame shot up and lunged at Tono's gun hand.
この
Asshole! Then the two of them fumbled for the gun. Then the gun went off and Madarame froze. During the struggle, the two of them had stumbled to the edge of the pier. Madarame grimaced slightly, clutching his gut. His shirt was stained scarlet. Oh shit. Then he fell backwards into the ocean. There was a loud splash.
しぶとい野郎だ。
I thought he'd never die. Oh. Breathing heavily, Tono turned the smoking gun on me as I lay on the ground. I was frozen to the spot. My right eye felt like it was on fire, and my whole body was throbbing. A moment later, I realized the weird feral breathing sounds were my own. Meanwhile, my one working eye was going hazy. Tono looked at me for a long moment, then lowered the gun. Apparently, he wasn't going to kill me. The next instant, I was overcome with intense drowsiness. I didn't want to sleep, but my consciousness was already fading.
お前は親父と血がつながってるからな。いろいろと面倒だ。
You're the boss's son, after all. It wouldn't be a good look. I wonder how different Towa was in this period, personality-wise. That was the last thing I heard before everything went dark. And the next time I awoke, my memories were a blur. According to Taku, who performed the eye surgery, I slept for 5 days straight. Taku asked me about what happened, but all I remembered was that Kaga, Madarame, and I all got shot. Whoop. When I awoke, I lifted my heavy eyelid. I like this shirt. My vision came into focus, and I found Madarame right next to me.
Boy.
Hey. Normally his face only had two modes, stoic or smug grin, but for once I could see a hard look on it in his eyes. But I didn't have the energy to keep looking at him, so I closed my eye again. Then I drifted back into the haze of sleep. My eyelid flew open at the sudden hard impact. Madarame's face was now inches from mine. He grabbed my jaw and kissed me. Whoa. It's probably feeding him. Something entered my mouth. Something that tasted like flour. Some kind of pastry. I tried to fight it, but with my own body out of commission, that wasn't happening. I couldn't even push him away. I could only claw weakly at his arm. He kissed me until he confirmed that I had swallowed the food, then pulled away. As I gasped for breath, he kissed me again. This repeated a few times more, then he started kissing water into my mouth. Partway through, I gave up and let him do it. Freed from the baby bird roleplay, I coughed. Next to him, I could see an empty pastry wrapper.
こうすれば食べるのか、お前は。
Is this the only damn way I can get you to eat?
ふざけるなよ。
Fuck off.
自力で食べるつもりがないなら食べさせてやる。それが嫌なら食え。いいな。
If you won't eat on your own, then I have to feed you myself. Don't like it? Then start eating. Got it? He straightened up, pulled his chair over, and sat down in it. Then I realized we were not in the same place we were before. Oh, probably picked a new place. Oh. New place in District A, I suppose. Madarame must have moved us after Tono caught wind of the last one. I reached up to my neck and felt cold leather. I was wearing the collar again. This time, the chain was attached to a thick pipe near the wall. Like last time, I was surrounded by pastries and bottles of water. Effectively, nothing had changed about my circumstances save for the location. The attack had done nothing to change Madarame's mind. While this didn't surprise me, at the same time it felt like this hell was unending. Would I remain his pet until my last breath? I didn't even have the energy to kill myself. If only I could will my heart to stop beating. In my mind, I had no desire to eat, but my body had other plans. I could feel it stirring in response to the food. Was there any point in prolonging my life like this? Did I have no other choice? Bitterly, I swallowed my despair. That night, I lay curled up against the wall, nodding off, when I heard what sounded like gravel crunching. I opened my eye and looked over. Madarame had risen from his chair and was now standing at the window. Outside, a half-moon hung in the inky sky. Sleepily, I stared vacantly at his face in profile. He must have sensed my gaze because he looked over his shoulder at me, then walked over.
加賀と俺を撃ったのは遠野だと言ったな。
You said Tono's the one who shot me in Kaga, right? His cold eyes stared down at me as I huddled against the wall.
思い出したのか。
So you remember now? Yeah. I swallowed dryly. In this day, I didn't have much energy to talk.
俺の目もそうだ。
And he shot my eye out. As I spoke hoarsely, I touched my right socket. Madarame had yet to return my eye patch. He narrowed his eyes slightly. But instead of responding, he turned and walked back to the window. I watched him go. Meanwhile, one particular question continued to swirl in my mind.
なんで戻ってきた？
Why did you come back? I never meant to say it, but the words left my lips of their own accord. In this condition, I'd lost my usual self-control. He shot me a glance.
あんたのことなんて思い出しもしなかったのに。
I never wanted to remember you. The words wouldn't stop coming. At the same time, I felt oddly furious at my own long-dead heart.
あんたは昔からそうだ。引っかき回して満足か。
You were always like this. Are you satisfied now that you've ruined my life? I glared at him. But he didn't say a word. Instead, he walked away from the window to the corner of the room. As I lay there enduring my pent-up anger, something fell onto me. It was a set of new clothes, plus my old coat.
着替えろ。
Get dressed. Meanwhile, Madarame shrugged into his own coat.
出かけるぞ。
We're going out. At this, I frowned up at him.
どこへ
Where?
デスマッチエリアだ。
The deathmatch area.
何しに
What for?
うろついてる連中と遊ぶんだよ。
To hang out with friends.
なんで
Why?
ただの暇つぶしだ。
To kill time. He narrowed his eyes in annoyance.
質問タイムは終わりか。早く支度をしろ。じゃなきゃ、そのままで連れ回すぞ。
Have you finished your little interrogation? Then hurry up and get ready. Otherwise, you're going out pantsless.
これは。
What about this? I held up the chain attached to my collar.
出る時だけ外してやる。まあ、どうせその体じゃ、ろくに逃げられないだろうが。
You won't have to wear it until we get back. Not that you could escape me in your current condition anyway. He was right. My energy was at an all-time low. Even if I tried to run at full speed, I'd never outrun him. It wasn't an option. I waited for him to remove my collar, then put on my new clothes and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I looked like a gaunt, ashen corpse. I was practically unrecognizable, even to myself. But that was fine by me. When I left the bathroom, I found Madarame standing by the door, his hood pulled low over his eyes.
行くぞ。
Let's go. I pulled on my coat, and together we left the room. Following a hard punch to the nose, the man went flying and hit the ground flat on his back. Late that night, Madarame was strolling along under the moonlight when a deathmatch fighter challenged him. When Madarame wiped him out in one punch, his buddies got mad and charged in. But now only Madarame and I were left standing. It was all over so fast. I could only stand there and watch it unfold. As the men groaned in pain, Madarame heaved a dramatic sigh.
弱すぎて話にならない。
These weaklings aren't worth my time. I was inclined to agree. He dodged all their pathetic attacks and easily took them out. They didn't stand a chance. Not a single one of them managed to land a hit.
わかるか。デスマッチの参加者以外にも、参加者を装って俺を潰すために送り込まれてる奴らがいる。
See? They're sending guys under the pretext of death matches, purely to hunt me down.
高里組の誰かの仕業だろうがな。せっかくだから遊んでやってるんだ。
I know the Takasato Gumi's behind it, so I figure I should give them what they want. With an apathetic shrug, he started walking.
他を探す。
Let's find some more. But just then, he stopped short. Dubiously, I gazed at him from behind. Then he looked over his shoulder at me.
聞こえるか。
Hear that? When I paused to listen, I could make out footsteps mixed in with the usual hustle and bustle of the city. These footsteps were irregular, like the stumbling of a drunk, and they were slowly approaching. Madarame glanced around in search of the source, then smiled faintly.
来るぞ。
Here he comes.
だりーな。なんだよ。
So so bored. Fuck this shit. The man was hunched over with both hands in his jacket pockets, muttering to himself as he stumbled along. They're not in his pockets. Behind him stumbled a few more guys, a deathmatch group perhaps, but not just any group. The man in the lead spotted Madarame, looked over and donned a twisted grin.
Well,
now, I'm pretty bored, so let's rumble. Wow! Super me. Just a bunch of dudes. Just a bunch of guys. Just a bunch of NPCs. Hehe. He's got red underwear. I love red underwear. I only have one pair, I want more. They're so nice. The men formed a loose circle around us. All of their eyes were dull and hazy, reminiscent of a different guy I once saw. The guy who slashed me on Koho Street. Druggies.
どうせお前なんか楽勝だろうけどよ。こっちが勝ったら何でも言うこと聞けよ。
Not that we'll have much trouble beating your ass. But if we win, you gotta do as we say.
まずはやっぱ金だけどさ、金。世の中何でもかんでも金だろ。財布ごと全部置いてけよ。そしたら。
First gotta be money, Natch. Money makes the world go round, you know? You're gonna hand over your whole wallet, and then... Before he could finish his sentence, Madarame ducked him square in the face. With both hands clutching his face, the man staggered backwards and ducked down. Screw you! The other man began to throw a fit. Aw, like a little baby. But it was painfully obvious how this was going to play out. A few minutes later, Madarame and I stood surrounded by men collapsed on the ground. But Madarame wasn't too entertained. He cracked his neck with an unamused look on his face. As for me, I was out of breath. Madarame had handled most of them, but one of them decided he'd settle for kicking my ass instead. But since I couldn't fight worth shit in my current condition, Madarame ended up coming to my rescue. With a disappointed sigh, Madarame crouched down next to the ringleader. He rolled the guy onto his back, then started riffling through his pockets. Eventually, he found what he was looking for in the inner pocket of his coat. It was a little plastic baggie filled with white powder. Madarame straightened up, ripped the baggie open, and dumped its contents onto the ground. One of the men whimpered in disappointment. Madarame tossed the baggie, then continued his search of the rest of the men, dumping out any drugs he found.
高里組が新しい薬を作ってるらしいな。完成前のサンプルが水面下で出回ってるんだろうが、その結果がこのありさまだ。
I hear the Takasato Gumi's cooking up a new drug, distributing experimental samples behind closed doors. And here's the result.
新しい薬。今出回ってるやつ以外は高里組で禁止してるんじゃないのか。
I thought they banned production of any new drugs.
組長が死んだからな。古いしきたりなんぞクソくらえってことだ。金儲けがしたいんだろ。
Yeah, well, now the boss is dead, so they don't give a shit about the old rules. They just want to line their pockets. He walked straight over to me and grabbed my arm. Then he dragged me into the narrow alley. At approximately the halfway mark, he relinquished his grip on me. I glared at him. He grinned and licked his lips.
お前を抱いてる方がまだ暇つぶしになる。来い。
I'd rather waste my time fucking you. Come here. His smoke swayed playfully. This pissed me off, and I didn't want to take orders from him. He was baiting me. If he wanted to grab me and use me like a fuck toy, I could get into that. But no. He wanted me to volunteer myself. I didn't want to. And yet, deep down, I got a little thrill out of it. I was out at my limits physically and mentally, and as a result, I had no self-control. This man was capable of giving me the pleasure I wanted. We were a perfect match. My body was well aware of this, and it found the temptation hard to refuse. He punched without hesitation. He fought to kill, and he enjoyed the violence from the bottom of his heart. Even if it resulted in his own death, he didn't care. Naturally, he didn't care if his opponent died either. That was the kind of game he played. His desires matched mine on a fundamental level. It was impossible not to relate. Still, I didn't want to let him win. It was because I could relate to that I refused to take his orders. Admittedly, in the past, I felt comfortable with him. But even then, too much time had passed. I had changed. I didn't want to be his pet. I just wanted to exist. As I stared back at him hesitantly, his smile vanished and he let out a sigh. Walk! The next instant, he punched me out of nowhere and I reeled. What's with this music? My skin burned hot where he punched me and I felt a familiar thrill in my gut. Whenever I took a punch, it made me want to give back in kind. Then I'd take another and give another and so on. Nothing got my blood pumping like trading full throttle blows. Madarame knew this. He was trying to seduce me into punching him back. As if he could read my mind, he donned an arrogant smirk. This is exactly why I hate you. Fuck. Cursing under my breath, I charged straight toward him. He dodged easily and struck back. It knocked the breath from my lungs and my vision went dark. Madarame was not the type to go easy on the weak. That knowledge was what enabled me to fight back as hard as I could. It'd be a miracle if I could even graze his cheek. He pummeled me in the face and gut until I wanted to puke. I spat up blood and stomach acid, then scrutinized Madarame cautiously. He was wearing his usual confident smile and, unlike me, wasn't even out of breath.
そろそろ終わりか。
Shall we end this? As he teased me, his fist cut sharply through the air. Whoa, whoa. I thought I just barely dodged it, but his next punch collided with my solar plexus, and I doubled over. I couldn't breathe. Suppressing the urge to barf, I clutched my stomach and staggered backwards.
案外持たなかったな。
You didn't last as long as I thought you would. He spoke flatly, then I sensed him moving. Clearly he was planning to finish me off. Still doubled over, I barreled forward. My brain was switched off and I was operating purely on instinct now. I looked up, gritting my teeth and clenched my fist. His sneering face drew near. Then the next instant, my sight dimmed. It felt like I blacked out for just a few seconds. The next thing I knew, my fist was touching his cheek. I only grazed his skin, of course, but for some reason I still felt a rush. I was having fun. Naturally, right after that, I took a direct punch and fell flat on my back. My whole body ached, but I felt great.
本当にお前は殴られるのが好きだな。
You really love getting your ass kicked, don't you? He straddled my hips and grinned down at me. Just then he grabbed my wiener, and I shot him a reproachful look.
立ってるぞ、この同変態。
You're hard as a rock, you freak. Only then did I notice my own erection pitching a tent in my pants.
てめえもだろうが。
So are you. I glanced at his crotch hovering just above mine and smirked. He snorted, then buckled his hips against my, thingy. I'm just gonna, maybe I should end here. Maybe I should end here, I'm worried. Shit,
血の涙を流すなんて誘ってるのか。
Look at you, crying tears of blood. You're just begging for it, aren't you? I just don't know when it's gonna appear. Oh, here he is! Once again, I didn't notice until he pointed it out. It must have happened after he punched me.
お前の血の匂い、たまらなくそそられる。
The smell of your blood really turns me on. His whisper sent a shiver down my spine. After that fistfight, I was too horny to endure much more of his teasing. This was the same shit we used to do back in the old days. Oh. After an all-out fistfight, I would always get horny and start looking for a hookup. And a lot of the time, Madarame was right there. His violent sex was my idea of comfortable, but sometimes it pissed me off too. It always felt like he was playing me like a fiddle and I hated it. He always looked down on everyone around him. But for some reason I was drawn to him and he seemed to want me around too. Looking back, part of me must have liked that he knew me so well. I think something's gonna happen. Madarame pulled off his coat then ripped open my shirt. CG? CG?
いつまで持つかな。
I wonder how long you'll last. This music is pretty interesting. Oh shit! Shut up! Shut up! Oh, now Madarame's lips are bloody because... Yeah. Maybe it was pointless. Maybe I could never truly resist him. Breathing heavily, I finally gave in to temptation. Something snapped at me, and before I knew it, I had wrapped both arms around Madarame's neck, pulling him in. At the deathmatch arena? What are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? I guess there's not gonna be a CG. I thought there was gonna be, but something's in something, and there's no CG. They're just in the middle of the street, on the floor, doing it. What the? What the? Maybe I should have just ended. I'm tired. I thought there was gonna be a CG, so I'm like, oh, gotta get the screen. But like the whole time, it's just like this. It's just this. They just did it here, man. Just like on the middle of the, oh shit. Like on the middle, just on the floor. Just on the floor here, they just did it. I'm like, what? What? What the? Well, without even getting dressed, he grabbed his discarded coat and retrieved his cigarettes and lighter. If you want to read the whole scene, part of the game, I guess. As I watched him light one up, I remembered the red and silver Zippo lighter. I guess they were too cheap to be like, they're like, no, 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 only 2 sex scene CGs. No more, no less, no, equality. But they're like, oh, but you know, Madarame and TOWA, they're just gonna do it. Man, it's been 2 times and they've already, in his route, they've already done it twice. What the? This is awkward. I'm just gonna end it, man. This is awkward, man. This is awkward. Wow. 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 Adios.